What lesson do you take from the city attorney experience?
Well, there's a number of lessons there. I mean, one of the lessons is that, to me, was that that I need to that there's a real sensitivity around the city attorney's appointment and the CEO's appointment, given the kind of independent responsibilities that those two positions have to the city council. That I had not, I hadn't fully appreciated before what happened with Ian. I'll be candid with you, your viewers. There's a tension that I have had to grapple with around. I really want to get a great team in all these open positions. It's one of the things that I'm excited that I might have the ability to offer to the city, is to bring in a talented group of people with a new perspective and a new energy, and I feel like that's what I talked a fair amount about doing, and I wanted to deliver on that in those early weeks, and I was focused on trying to do that, and what was not in those initial weeks as clear to me as it is today is that I need to stay very disciplined in the attempt to do that, of keeping any, basically people who want to come in and perform public service. I want them on the team. I want talented people here. I have very little maneuverability in terms of what I can offer them around salaries. There is some, technically, there's some ability of the mayor within the appointment process to ask for a little bit of additional money. I thought it was reasonable what I was proposing at the time. As I got farther into the budget conversations, and certainly as the Ian Carlton issue showed, is we have, even if the money is relatively small, it is very difficult to be able to say to the other 650 employees, to be able to say to the public, we need to be financially prudent and austere. We need to be careful about our spending, except for the appointees that I want to bring in. So that was a lesson.
What I want to do is discuss some of what you've learned so far, a few of the issues that are on the table, like housing appointments, the budget, and that kind of thing. But let's start with some of the things that you said during the campaign and use them as a basis for questions.
All right.
Okay, so thorough organizational and financial review. So obviously you and the team have found savings, so we won't have to have a tax increase this year. But what else have you found out about how the city is organized and run? Is there waste, less than best practices?
I do think we have found some areas where there is opportunity for real savings. I mean, there's clearly some areas, so like with the parking garages, I think we're looking at some automation of the gates when people leave a parking lot. And we're looking at the possibility of moving to a kiosk parking meter system in some parking lots, stuff that we did talk about during the campaign at times. So there's definitely some of that. It was a surprise, I think, to me, just how I think there is an opportunity to sort of change the culture, have a better coordination, better sense that I think I've done something just by being there. Not to put too grand a point on it, but I do think, and I found this through the campaign too. Public employees wanted a fresh start as much as anybody coming out of this last period of time. I think, there was real morale problems in many parts of the city. And I'm not saying we've solved them, but I think the fact that there had been so much discord and distrust had affected the ability of public employees to do their job, their ability to get things done. And, I think I'm feeling some optimism. We're making some progress there.
The Moran plant came up frequently, and you said that on this one, you said that the lack of action was sort of symbolic of what had been going on in the city, and that you were going to have a crisp deadline, a no-go decision. You got 3 weeks.
I went into this saying that I've basically been asking 3 questions. One is the current plan feasible? A second is, and this is related but separate in some ways, is what is Ice Factor as the anchor tenant? Is that feasible, appropriate? Is that the right anchor tenant? And then a third question, which my hunch was, and this has been confirmed in my conversations with people, my hunch was that this analysis had never really been done. Is this project the right project to be getting the really quite large TIF investment that is currently planned? Basically, Moran will receive, if the current plan was to go forward, about $7 million worth of TIF funding that that is not being generated by the Moran redevelopment, that could be spent on any public waterfront need, essentially. And I frankly did not know that number was as large as it was until at some point during the campaign, and it has always struck me since understanding how large of an investment the past plan was that was a question that needed to be asked, and so we're asking that as well.
Do you have a handle on why it has taken so long?
Well, it's a combination of factors. I'd say there are two big ones. One is the route that Bob Kiss chose to take was a very complicated route. The financial structure that his deal hinges on, if you were to look at a kind of deal chart of that direction, it would, without exaggeration, really, it would kind of look like that chart of the Clinton healthcare system that Arlen Specter used to hang up there. It is a very complicated transaction that's being contemplated here, and that I've been through transactions like that. They always take real time. What's also happened here is, I think Moran got to a point in the last couple of years where it, like many things, became partially lack of progress was about it, and partially was about this larger narrative about Burlington Telecom and lack of faith in the past administration, and the lack of, and that's very corrosive in a deal like this, particularly corrosive. The other parties at a certain point, I think, stopped being willing to make investments and move forward, not knowing, what was going to happen politically to the last administration. So I think that was certainly part of it. The 2008 economic crisis certainly impacted one of the key partners, the ICE Factor partner as well. So I'd say those three things are the major issues.
Okay, all the candidates agreed that one of the biggest problems, the elephant in the room, is the pension liability. Okay, projected more than 50 million, maybe 55 million during the campaign. Don't know what you know now. You talked about convening a summit. So when is that going to happen?
Yeah.
And is this still the elephant? Isn't this still the elephant in the room?
It's certainly still a big issue. My plan for the summit, I certainly haven't forgotten that was what I committed to doing. I think a good timing for that will be this fall. It allows me to get through, this period that we're still in, having, I'm loving it. But it has been quite intense to come in as new administration, have to make a decision immediately about the tax increase, have to try to get a budget passed. That's combined with the appointment deadline being, the department heads all have appointments that run through June 30th, so there's been this major effort about deciding about personnel going forward. And then the self-inflicted deadline of having committed to Moran basically on the same day, July 1st.
Right.
That's a lot of work, and what just described there. There's also a major software change going on in the city, completely
and all this
independent from me.
simultaneously.
Yeah, we're going to go to a new accounting system on July 1st as well. So this was not the time for me to, in a meaningful way, engage in that summit. I think the fall would be a good time for the summit, in that some of the next round of public employee negotiations for some of the unions begins in January, February. So I think there's a moment in the fall where, kind of removed from the pressures of any immediate deadlines and collective bargaining, we can really have a discussion about where to go. And I can't prejudge where that is going to go, but that's my plan.